Okay, now that you have an understanding of how the chromatic and the major scale is laid out on the guitar, let's start memorizing the notes on the strings, okay? So we're going to start with the low E. Now when we do the low E, we're also doing the high E because it's the same notes. All right, the high E is just 2 octaves higher. But again, it's the notes the notes are going to be in the same position here. So the first thing to do is you've got to map out the key of C on the particular string you're working on, and in this case we're working on the low E. So we got to find the C scale on the E string. Now, and we can start with the E note. That's the third note of the key of C. So we can just start on E here. All right, now as we map out the key of C on the E string, or on the string that you're working on, you want to create memory devices or mnemonics for each note, if possible. That's going to just help you remember the note's location. So we already know this is the E. Most people out there, you know, that's like one of the first things you learn is the names of the strings. Okay, so we already know this is E. So what about F? How are you going to remember this is F? Well, when we looked at the construction of the chromatic scale, we know that the F is a half step away from E. So we're going to tie F's location to knowing where E is, okay? And so let's think of F as E's neighbor, all right? All right, now what about G? How are we going to remember this is G? Well, what about the G chord? You know, this is like one of the first chords that you learn. So the G chord is going to help you remember, you know, this is where G is, all right? Another thing is G's on a dot, and, you know, let's say you didn't know, for instance, that this was a G chord. Say you haven't learned that yet, but you know of the G3 trio, you know, and this is at the 3rd fret, okay, G3, you know, that's sometimes G3, that phrase is associated with the G3 trio. So maybe that'll help you. So whatever type of, you know, memory device that you can use to help you remember the location, you know, use it. All right. So what about A being at the 5th fret? Okay. Well, you know, this is where we tune the guitar. Okay. Hopefully most of you out there know the old school way of tuning the guitar, where you know, just go to the 5th fret of every string except the G string, you know, to tune the guitar with itself. Okay, so A on the E string, when we think of where is A on the E string, we think tune the guitar. Okay, that's going to help us. All right, now what about B at the 7th fret? Well, B is on a dot, okay? And you know, these dots are there for a reason. They're like landmarks. They're there to help you kind of get orientated. So you know, you want to use them for that purpose. So what about B at the 7th fret? Well, you know, we could think of, for instance, the honeybee and the honeycomb. Okay, the honeycomb is made of 7 hexagons. Okay, so we could kind of relate B7, like the honeybee, and the 7 hexagons that make up the honeycomb as B at the 7th fret on the low E. And if that, you know, if that doesn't work for you, try to think of something else. You know, sometimes, you know, you just have to, you know, just learn it without any mnemonics if that doesn't work for you, okay? All right, so now C is after B. C is at the 8th fret. So we're going to tie the C's location to B, all right? And, you know, I would encourage you to just remember that fact if you didn't know it already about the honeybee and the 7 hexagons, and maybe if you didn't know that already, maybe just knowing that fact is going to help you remember, hey, B is at the 7th fret, okay? And so anyway, we're going to tie C's location to B. C is B's neighbor. C is a half step away from B. All right, now what about D being at the 10th fret? Okay, Well, D is a whole step away from E, and hopefully you already know that the notes repeat here at the double dots, okay, at the 12th fret. So if you already know that E is here, then we can tie D's location to E, that D is a whole step down from E. All right. So the main objective here is to map out the key of C on the particular string we're working on. In this case, it's E. And then try to tie some type of memory devices, you know, even if they're corny, whatever works, okay? And, you know, that's going to help you with this whole, you know, note recognition system, okay? So now, once we have the notes mapped out in the key of C on the particular string, now we want to exercise our note recognition ability for those particular notes. And how can we do that? Well, one way is just simply going, you know, E, F, G, A, B, and thinking about our mnemonics, you know, as we go. Another way is to use the cycle of diatonic fourths in the key of C. Okay, what do I mean by that, the cycle of diatonic fourths? Okay, well, if you think of the key of C, the C scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, okay, and if we start, say, on C, for instance, and then count every fourth note, okay, we're going to come up with this sequence of notes, C, F, B, E, A, D, G. Okay, so, okay, now I've got to remember something else now, right? Well, you know, it's not that hard, you know. C to F, okay, think of cycle fourths, okay, C, F, and then the word bead. You can spell bead, right? B-E-A-D, and then put G there at the very end. And we're going to use this sequence of notes to exercise our note recognition ability. You know, it's a lot easier to just walk up the string and just do this, E, F, G, A, right? We're not really thinking that much. But if we have to skip around, which we'll do if we use that cycle, you know, it's going to really force us to think. So what you would do is once you have that cycle memorized, C, F, B, E, A, D, G, okay, we're going to play that on the low E string. So it would be like this, C, F, B, E, A, D, G. All right, so you noticed how I skipped around on the string, so I really have to know my notes in order to do that, okay? And something else I want to point out, when you are doing this, don't learn this cycle here as like you would learn a lick, you know, going C, F, B, E, A, D, G, or like a melody to where you're not really thinking. Okay, you really want to think about the note's location. Okay, because if you're just learning it like a lick and you're learning, okay, I move from here to here and so on, but you're not tying all the notes to it, then it's defeating the whole purpose. All right, so one thing you could do is put a timer on or have a friend, you know, time you while you do this, or, you know, if you could do it yourself, or practice with a metronome, okay? Put a metronome on a comfortable setting and then just play with the click in time and do this exercise. And, you know, gradually increase the speed, okay? And that's going to force you to think faster, all right, and really get to know the notes. So, once you've done that and you've practiced this cycle and you really are comfortable with where all the natural notes are, then you want to exercise your ability to find all the flat notes, okay? Now, I like to use this cycle called the order of flats, okay? And the order of flats is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. So the word bead, okay, with G on the end, but all of those are flats, okay? So we're going to use, you know, hopefully you've stopped the the video and you've got down the key of C and you've done that note recognition exercise, you know, with the cycle of diatonic fourths in C, and you're comfortable with that now. And so now let's exercise the flat note recognition, okay? And we're going to use what we've already learned to help us find where the flat notes are. You know, the flat notes are just going to be a half step below the natural notes, okay? All right, so we have B flat here, right? And we know that because hopefully you already know that this is B, okay, here at the 7th fret. So anyway, we got B flat here, and then we've got E flat here because E is at the 12th fret. And then we have A flat, right, because we know A is right here where we tune the guitar. And then D flat is here at the 9th fret, okay, and then G flat here at the 2nd fret, okay. So again, you want to either put on a metronome or a timer and exercise. You know, with the timer, you would time yourself, like I said, and establish a time that you can do this, all right, and then try to beat that time, okay, if you didn't want to, you know, practice with the metronome. Both ways are good. You know, the metronome is going to help you work on your timing. Okay, so, all right, so once you've practiced playing the order of flats, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, then you want to put the whole thing together, okay? The whole thing together in the sense of you want to play the cycle of perfect fourths. Okay, and the cycle of perfect fourths is C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G. Okay, now the perfect fourth interval is 2 whole steps and a half step. So remember when we were talking about the construction of the chromatic scale? So you can choose a note in the chromatic scale, and if you go 2 whole steps and then a half step, that is a perfect fourth above that particular note. All right, so how would we memorize this particular cycle? Okay, well, I'm going to share with you a visualization technique that really helps my students memorize this cycle of perfect fourths. And again, we're going to use this cycle of perfect fourths as a tool to help us exercise our note recognition ability. And not only that, you can use it for other things as well. Like if you wanted to, let's say you learned a new chord like this, right? Like the C major 7 here, right? And you knew that the root was here, okay? So to become fluent with it, you know, you could use that cycle of perfect fourths to practice this. You could say, okay, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, and so on, okay, to really become fluent with moving that shape all around the guitar. Okay, so, all right, so let's get back to this visualization technique of how we remember the cycle of perfect fourths, okay, without doing all this calculating in our heads. Okay, so imagine a bead necklace, okay? A bead necklace, a necklace, you know, is a circle. It's round, right? Okay, up at the top, we have the clasp of this necklace, okay? And the clasp is going to symbolize the notes C and F, okay? This whole necklace thing is just going to be a symbol for the cycle of fourths, and it's going to help you remember this cycle, okay? So the clasp is going to symbolize C and F, okay, and now we've got a row of flat beads on this necklace, okay, and then so those flat beads are going to be B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. They're going to be symbolic of those notes. And then after that we have a row of natural beads, okay, and that's going to be B, E, A, D, G. Now we're back up here at the clasp, okay. So again, you have the clasp, which is symbolic of C and F. Then we have our row of flat beads, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. Then our row of natural beads, B, E, A, D, G. All right, hopefully you have that memorized. Let's say you're still struggling with it. Another way to think about it is break it up and think of C and F, okay, and think of cycle of fourths, cycle fourths, CF. And then think of the word bead, G. The word bead with G at the end, but this bead G is all flats. Okay, and then after that you've got bead G again, but that's going to be all natural, B-E-A-D-G. Okay, so hopefully by now you have that memorized, because I mean if you can spell the word bead, you've already got 90% of it memorized already anyway. Okay, so again, we're going to use this as a tool to help us with our note recognition, to help us memorize and exercise that ability, I should say. All right, so now you want to do this. All right, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G. Okay. So again, you noticed how I was skipping around on the guitar. That forces you to really think and know where these notes are. And so practice that with a timer, or a metronome, and get that down. All right, so now let's have a look at the A string. Okay, so again, to reiterate, the 3 steps that we're going to do to master a string and master knowing where the notes are is, first thing we're going to do is we're going to map out the key of C on that particular string. All right, and then as we map out the key of C, we're going to tie mnemonic devices to each note, if possible, to help us remember the location of those notes. After we've done that, we use the cycle of diatonic fourths, and diatonic means according to the scale. Okay, so we're going to use the cycle of diatonic fourths in the key of C to exercise our note recognition ability with those particular notes. All right, the next step is we're going to use the order of flats, okay, which is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, to help us with our note recognition ability with the flat notes. And then lastly, we're going to use the cycle of perfect fourths, okay, to tie everything together. Why do we separate? Why do we say, okay, we're going to learn the naturals first, and then we're going to learn the flats, and then tie everything together? Well, it's just like, when you sit down to enjoy a meal, right? Like, say, a sandwich, okay? Most people don't stick the whole sandwich in their mouth. You take, one bite at a time, right? So that's kind of what we're doing here with this. We're taking one bite, just the naturals, okay? Then we're taking another bite, the flats, all right? And then we're kind of digesting everything when we do put the whole thing together, okay? Just to make it easier, all right? If you don't need to do that, if you can just say, well, I know the cycle of perfect fourths now, I'm just going to jump in and just, jump in the deep end and just go ahead and just start with that, fine. Okay, but, I'm trying to give you a, a systematic step-by-step, kind of like a baby step method, okay, to help you digest this. This is like overwhelming, like memorizing all these notes, all right? Okay, so we're on the A string, and I'm going to walk through this with you. So again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to map out the key of C on the A string. So we can start with the A note, okay? All right. So we know this is A, right? Most of us out there know this is the A string. So what about B? How are we going to remember this is B? Well, since we understand the construction of the chromatic scale, we know that B is a whole step away from A, okay? So we're going to tie B's location to A. Because we know where A is, B should be pretty easy to find, all right? Something else is that, what about C? Well, most of you out there hopefully know this is the C chord. This is one of the first chords that we learn when we're learning the guitar, okay? So we've got 2 locations that we already know. We know this is the A note. We know this is a C chord. So that's going to surround the B note. Okay. All right, so now let's move on. So we already covered C. We're going to think C chord to help us remember where the C note is. C also is on a dot. Okay, now what about D's location? Well, D's on a dot, and it's also where we tune the guitar. Right? We tune the D string with this note. Right? The D note here at the 5th fret. Okay, now what about the 7th fret here where we have the E note? Okay, well that's on a dot. And something you might not be aware of is that at the 7th fret on every string is the octave of the lower adjacent string. Okay, so for instance, you know, here's E, and then that's E. Right, when we go to the next string, same thing. When we're here on the D string, this is A, and that's A. Okay, so the 7th fret is where the octave is, you know, except when you get to the B string, because the B is tuned a major third away from G. All right, and so that doesn't work there, but most of the time that works. All right, so we're going to remember that E being here at the 7th fret, that's where our octave is. Okay, so that's going to be like our little memory device. And again, if that doesn't work for you, think of something, you know, if E7 rings a bell in something in your life, you know, that makes it easier to remember, use that, okay? All right, now what about F? Well, I'm going to tie F's location to E, because I know E is at the 7th fret on a dot here, you know. I'm going to use that to help me remember that F is just a half step above, okay, here at the 8th fret. Okay, now we have G at the 10th fret. Now, I'm going to use A, since I know A is here at the 12th fret, I'm going to tie G to A. Now, let me just stop here and say that all this kind of thing that we're doing is kind of like training wheels. Eventually, you're just going to know where the notes are. You're not going to need to know about honeybees and hexagons and, you know, all this kind of stuff. You know, this is just kind of to help you get from one point to another point, to help you get from not knowing the notes on the guitar to one day you just know them. And you don't need any training wheels and you don't need any help. You just know where the notes are, okay? So, all right, anyway, so again, we tied G's location to A, all right, and we know that G is a whole step away from A. Okay, so now that we've mapped out the key of C on the A string, right, and we've established our mnemonic devices, then we want to use the cycle of diatonic fourths in the key of C, and again, that just means every 4th note in the key of C. C, F, B, E, A, D, G. And again, the reason why we're using that, we're just using it as a tool to help us skip around the guitar in a systematic, methodical way, okay, to practice our note recognition ability for the key of C, as opposed to just simply mindlessly just going A, B, C, D. You know, that's not really helping. Okay, at least it didn't help me. You know, whenever I was, you know, working on this way back, you know, it helped to like skip around, and then I had to really think about it. Okay, so hopefully that'll work for you. I've been using this system with my students for years, and it's really helped them. So I know this works. Okay, so yeah, so we'll take the cycle of fourths, diatonic fourths in the key of C, and we're just going to do this. C, F, B, E, A, D, G. Okay, so you're going to want to do that again with the metronome, or, you know, time yourself and establish a time and then try to beat the time. Okay, so once you've done that, like, you know, maybe you ought to, if you need to work on this, stop the video, work on that, okay? Get that down. And then once you can do that at, you know, about the speed I did it, C, F, B, E, A, D, G, okay, once you can do it like that fast, okay, well, you're good to go. Now move on to the next step. And the next step is to locate the flats. Okay, we're going to use the order of flats to do that. And again, the order of flats is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and so it's the word bead with G at the end, all flats. Okay, so we're going to use since we've already established where all the natural notes are in the key of C, that's going to help us find the flats. All right, it's going to be a half step below its natural counterpart. Okay, so all right, so B flat is here at the 1st fret, and then we have E flat here at the 6th fret, and then A flat here at the 11th. Okay, D flat is here at the 4th, and then G flat at the 9th. Okay, so you might want to stop the video and then exercise that. Okay, and then once you're done, turn the video back on, and now we're going to get into the cycle of perfect fourths. Okay, we're going to put everything together now, right, to exercise our note recognition. And again, the cycle of perfect fourths is C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G. I emphasize that because usually when I'm showing this to a new student, they'll typically, I'll say, we'll get to the part of, okay, we got to do the cycle of perfect fourths in the key of C, and I explain that to them. And so when they go to do it, they'll do C, F, B, E, A, D, G, and then they'll do B flat, E flat, A flat, G flat. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not the cycle of perfect fourths. Okay? It's C natural, F natural, then the flats, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G. That's the cycle of perfect fourths. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. So we're just going to do this. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, and G. All right, so now you want to practice doing that, okay, with a metronome or a timer. All right, so now let's take a look at the D string.